The House Energy, Communications, and Technology Committee will come to order, but we're going to go at ease for a moment to allow members to arrive. Thank you. The House Energy, Communications, and Technology Committee will come to order. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Chair Scott,
Present.
Representatives Andrews,
Here.
Holman,
Here.
Whitsitt, Neely,
Here.
Burns,
Here.
Churches,
Present.
Hill,
Here.
McDonald,
Present.
McFall,
Here.
Wenzel, Outman,
Here.
Aragona,
Here.
McGold,
Here.
Green, Preston,
Here.
Schmaltz.
Here.
Madam Chair, you have 14 members, you have a quorum.
Thank you. We need a motion to adopt the minutes from the March 22nd meeting. Representative Neely, thank you, moves to adopt the minutes. All right. So at this time, we're going to hear from the Michigan Department of Technology and Management and Budget. Today we have Laura Clark, who's the Michigan Chief Information Officer, and Jack Harris, the Michigan Chief Technology Officer. You guys are ready to start? Great, thank you.
Yes, ma'am. I would just like to say thank you to the committee for having us in. When the chairwoman asked us to come in and present a Tech 101, there were great discussions about what we should do. Have no fear, we will not be getting into what fiber rings, RAM, and other things. There will not be a quiz. It's not going to be that terrible. We're going to keep it high level. It'll be great. I love my nerds, but we're going to keep it high level for everybody. All right, Laura Clark, take it away.
All right, thank you, committee, for having us back. We had a really good experience, and I hope you guys enjoyed the cybersecurity presentation that we did last month. So we were excited when you asked us to come back and for the opportunity to talk to you today. We also want to say thank you for your continued support and interest in technology. It's really important for our residents and how we interact and able to deliver service to them in this modern world. So like Bree said, we'll try to stay away from the bits and bytes and the ones and zeros kind of talk today, and give you maybe some exciting tech talk to start your day off and see if you can compare our presentation to everything else you have to listen to today. So again, thank you. You know, Michigan has been known as a longstanding leader amongst the states in both technology and cybersecurity. So we're proud of what we do. But we want to say thank you to the governor and to the legislature for your continued support in providing funding throughout the past several years to help us continue to modernize and to advance what we're doing within the technology world. I'd like to take a minute to have Jack Harris introduce himself and give a little bit of background.
Sure. Good morning. My name's Jack Harris. I'm the Chief Technology Officer. I started working for the state of Michigan in information technology in 1976 as an application developer for Department of Social Services shortly after they bought their first mainframe. So I understand mainframes. Over the years, I have worked with a number of different technologies and in many different roles, all in information technology. It's been a very exciting time, and I'm proud to have served the great state of Michigan for almost 5 decades.
Thank you, Jack, and thank you for being here to co-present with me today. I'd like to personally thank Jack for his continued leadership in IT. Obviously, almost 5 decades in state service and within the IT field is really impressive. I'd also like to say thank you to Jack. He's been a very kind mentor to myself and many others within our organization. So as we stated, we are here as the T part of DTMB, representing technology today. But we did want to give a couple of intro slides on what DTMB is and how IT fits into that organization. So I'm not going to read everything on this slide today, but if you take anything away today about what DTMB as a whole does, please try to remember our motto, which is help, connect, and solve. This is what we try to do on a daily basis, is work with our agencies to figure out what we need to connect to, how they need to connect, how they need to interact. We work to solve problems and find solutions to be able to do their job. DTMB, like I said, is a very large organization. We're actually the 4th biggest state agency. As we work as service providers, and we provide administrative support and different services supports behind the scenes for our state agencies. We work with them collaboratively to help understand what they're trying to accomplish, what they want to do, and what I refer to as a digital strategy, which is what are they trying to do in the digital world. Not necessarily what technology or what platforms they're using, but what are they trying to do. So an example of a digital strategy would be they want to complete, say, 85% of their transactions with their customers through their online services or through a digital format. So that would be an example of a digital strategy. What we then do, and what I'm responsible for as the CIO, is to ensure that we align our technology in the right way to be able to support them to accomplish their goals. DTMB, we don't necessarily interact directly with the public very often, but we do support, like I said, the state agencies. They are our primary customer. So we have 3 kind of customer groups that we'll talk a little bit about, but the state agencies, they're our primary customer. We do, like I said, work to align our technology and our strategies around technology to help them provide business to their customers. Our second customer is the state residents. Like I said, we don't necessarily directly interact very often with them. We do have a few programs where we do, but most importantly, it's how we develop and how we work on those interfaces that the state agencies use to support their customers. If we don't design those and those don't work correctly, then it has a big impact on how state agencies and customers are able to interact. And then finally, we work with many external entities, including local government. So we have several program areas later in the slide presentation that we'll kind of highlight so that you have some resources and some information about some programs that maybe your areas and your constituents want to look into. So when I was here in March, we talked a lot about what we're seeing in the SOM, or the state of Michigan, network and environment, especially around cybersecurity. So just, I know it's a big, scary number, but just as a reminder, we're fighting, or we're blocking about 90 million potentially malicious intrusion attempts a day. So obviously, there's a lot of information and a lot of data that we're entrusted with that's very valuable to our cyber criminals. So they're coming at us all the time. So we're very vigilant about that. I also talked a lot about My Login and our single sign-on portal and our identity and access management program as part of our zero trust strategy as it relates to cybersecurity. But I wanted to just highlight today that we have about 10.2 million different unique identities that are stored in that system. We thought it would be important also to highlight some of the other numbers to help understand the complexity of the IT environment as a whole, and what we're doing to support state of Michigan agencies, employees, and residents. So we actually, for all state employees, all 49,000 approximately state employees, we support 60,000 desktops, laptops, and tablets. We have over 21,000 mobile devices or cell phones now that we manage and support. And we also have 140,000 public safety radios through our Michigan Public Safety Communication System. Many of these radios, or the majority of these radios, are actually used and leveraged by our local governments, our public safety, and first responders. DTMB also supports a large portfolio of applications. We have about 1,700 applications that we support that help us conduct our business. Several of them are external facing, which is what the residents use to interact with our agencies, but many of those are internal facing applications that allow the state of Michigan employees to actually conduct their jobs. And then finally, I wanted to highlight the Michigan, the MyDeal program. The MyDeal program is not necessarily managed by IT or falling under the CIO's arm of DTMB, but it does fall within DTMB. But this program is a very important program for our local agencies and external entities where they're able to use the state of Michigan contracts to be able to procure services off from those contracts with the state of Michigan's buying power. So this really helps save some money for the agencies. They are able to use the discounts or the pricing that we're able to negotiate because of the large size of our organization. There's been about $1 billion of purchases off from these contracts by external outside of state of Michigan entities. So I'm going to hand it over to Jack, and Jack's going to take us through some of the history of IT in the state of Michigan. And I'll hand it over to you, Jack.
All right, thank you. So I can give some history since I've been here since dinosaurs roamed the world. In 1995, Department of Management and Budget purchased their first ERP system to centralize accounting information management for the state. At that time, every agency managed their own mainframes and networks. And then centralizing the accounting information system meant that all of the agency networks needed to be interconnected. So that started things up. At that point, the internet had been publicly available for almost 5 years. And state agencies decided to use that new technology to connect the centralized accounting systems. There were several consolidation efforts prior to the formation of DIT, consolidating telecommunications and information processing and mainframes in 94 and 95. Finally, in 2001, the rest of IT was centralized through Executive Order 2001-3. That centralization effort consolidated all technology resources, services, people, and management functions related to information technology throughout the executive branch into one department. Then it was called the Department of Information Technology. Michigan was one of the first few states to move to a centralized model and is still one of the few states that is as highly centralized as we are. This centralization allows us to deliver uniform services through economies of scale and the purchasing power of the executive branch agencies. It also allows us to deliver consistently supported and reliable IT services to the state agencies. We can apply cybersecurity protection for all of state IT systems, state devices, and state data. DTMB provides tracking and traceability for IT investments and funding. This ensures that we have accountability for all IT projects through standardized processes and procedures. Many states have seen benefits of IT consolidation and have consolidated parts of their IT environment for cost savings or for centralized security oversight or economies of scale. But Michigan has consolidated all aspects of information technology, including infrastructure, meaning our networks, data centers, our project management, application development and maintenance, IT procurement, our desktop computer environments, telecommunications and management of smart devices, and our IT classified employees. Michigan's information technology is organized into 4 IT management pillars under the leadership of our state CIO, Laura.
So
Go ahead.
the first DTMB IT pillar is our cybersecurity and infrastructure protection. This is the group that Jason Cavendish was with us last time. He's leading that group right now. And we talked a lot about the cybersecurity side of the house. But we also have infrastructure protection, so the actual physical security of our buildings and our locations, centrally combined with our cyber function. A lot of times what we see is when there's a security concern, it involves both cybersecurity as well as physical security. So Michigan is one of the few states that actually has combined those two functions into one part of the organization. So since we talked about cybersecurity last time, we just thought that we would want to highlight the infrastructure protection side of the house. So OIP is responsible for the physical security of DTMB managed buildings, which means the 24-hour monitoring and emergency response coordination to any facility, DTMB's facility. And OIP also does the emergency management planning, coordination, and training exercises for DTMB.
So the Office of the Chief Technology Officer is led by me. Often a CTO organization manages enterprise architecture standards and innovation within an organization. In Michigan, the Office of CTO is also responsible for managing the operation of our core enterprise IT services on a 7x24x365 basis. That includes our local and metropolitan networks, internet access hosting centers, application servers, desktop computers, telephones, smart devices, and our standardized collaboration tools. So I hope you don't get tired of that long list. So, our third pillar, agency services, is led by our IT Deputy Director for Agency Services, Cindy Perchetti. I'd like to take a second to say that Cindy's been an incredible leader over the past 6 short years she's been here in DTMB. She's announced her retirement in June, sadly for us, but I'm sure her grandchildren are very happy. Before coming to DTMB, she spent almost 8 years at the Department of Treasury, where she was a consumer of DTMB services. And she spent her first years at the state within the legislative branch of government, starting as a full-time employee in 1982 after serving an internship here. Cindy and her team work endlessly with the state agencies to understand the agency needs and their business strategies and translate that into technology solutions to support the agency's missions. Agency services functions as an extension of the state agencies. The agency services staff are co-located with their business customers to provide a continuous partnership, enabling us to supply IT services that align with the agency's needs.
1 second. Jack, when you speak, can you speak more into the mic?
Oh, yes,
Thank
ma'am.
you. And just kind of direct it towards your mouth. Thank you. Appreciate it. Go ahead.
Thank you. So the fourth IT pillar is our Center for Shared Solutions or Shared Services. This is run by our longest tenured IT deputy, Eric Swanson. Several of you may know Eric. This is actually the part of the organization that I started in. So like Jack, I have spent my entire career in DTMB and supporting IT services. I started in this area under the Geographic Information System, so computerized mapping. So this is, near and dear to my heart, this part of the organization, as all of them are, right? You're not supposed to have one favorite, I guess. But this part of the organization really is focused on consolidating services that are used or leveraged by multiple agencies, but are more discretionary in nature. So where Jack's CTO's organization has the things, the backbone and the things that people are required to use. These are things where some of the state agencies want to use them, but we consolidate them again to get kind of that economy of scale. We can host them on the same infrastructure, have the same support staff being able to serve multiple agencies, so we get benefits there. This group has the Michigan Public Safety Communication System, as well as our Michigan.gov, our eMichigan organization, so all the .gov applications and things are here. We also have in this group our own personal Geek Squad, so the group that goes out and actually does the tech support on our desktops and laptops and things out for the actual individual employees if they're having computer issues, as well as the client service center, which is our call center. So anytime anybody has to call for support on any of our IT, they go through the client service center first, and then they help either fix the problem if they can at tier 1 or distribute it to help find the correct technical resource to be able to resolve the issue. So as the CIO, I think that we're doing a great job managing and running IT for the state of Michigan. But we do have some awards that can help attest to that. So we have some third-party validation here. So the first one I want to highlight, this is kind of what I would refer to as the state IT Oscars. We don't necessarily get the same red carpet treatment for these, but it's one of the highest awards that we can receive. And we're very proud of this. So we've been given, again, this past year, the A grade, which is the highest grade in the Center for Digital Government's Digital State Survey. We're one of the few states that has received an A grade as many years in a row as we have. The only other state that has is kind of tied with us for how many times they've got the A grade in a row is Utah, but we're working to try to take them and beat them one day, right? Be the longest standing. So we have a little bit of competition there in between states. The other award that I really wanted to highlight is through the NASCIO, which is the National State Chief Information Officers. So this is a peer-to-peer award where they review projects and nominations that are submitted. And our MyLogin actually won the Cybersecurity Project of the Year last year, which is a great recognition for how Michigan is managing our identity and access management program. So just to highlight MyLogin a little bit here. MyLogin is, again, the single sign-on, so that first kind of entry page that most of our applications, if you're going to log in as the public or even our employees or some businesses that do interactions with Michigan, this is the first page that they see. We actually are getting ready to release a new interface. We did what's referred to as a human-centered design approach, where we did a survey to actually work with some people who use the application itself and see how their experiences were and where they were struggling a little bit, being able to connect with our services and complete their tasks online. So we've taken that information and we're working with our eMichigan team that has our central branding look and feel, and we're going to be releasing a new version of the MyLogin front end so that it hopefully helps our residents be able to connect easier. And I'm going to hand it back over to Jack again so we can talk a little bit about the evolution of technology.
Okay. The road to centralized technology has changed significantly over the past 20 years that IT has been centralized in Michigan. Michigan has changed as the technology markets have changed to provide increasingly more services at an ever-increasing rate of change and introduction of new technology capabilities. When DIT was formed, the state had 22 data centers. Today we have 2. There were 3 email directories and 442 servers managing email. Today there is 1 centralized email presence for the state of Michigan. External impacts, like the pandemic, have caused exponential growth in the need for IT services, and the consolidated resources of DTMB have been able to respond to that need. For example, at the beginning of the pandemic, the state had an average of about 2,200 people working remotely every day. Within a matter of weeks, DTMB was able to provision remote access services for close to 20,000 people and more than double the capacity of our internet network and security services. In information technology, there's no such thing as status quo. To use an automotive analogy, when you buy a new car with all of the latest and greatest features and safety items, initially there's minimal cost to operate your car other than gas and oil. But when you get past that 100,000 mile mark, you start to notice regular trips to the garage for parts replacement and small things stop working as smoothly as they used to. Pretty soon you find yourself spending as much per year on repairs as you were on car payments in the first couple of years, and some parts are harder to find. You also notice that the newer cars have more features for comfort, safety, and economy, and the paint job's better. So that's, I could also use a roads analogy, but we all know that one. So that is how legacy systems start to affect IT businesses of our agencies and the delivery of services to our residents. DTMB needs to balance multiple factors when determining the technology road that we want to travel. For example, software licensing models have changed dramatically over the last 20 years, just like your phone or your television service at home. There used to be mostly perpetual use software license agreements where you would pay once and for as long as it could run on your computer. Now there are subscription-based models with monthly fees for the service. There are also usage-based models with a monthly fee for how much you use. Government services to our residents also have to balance how we deliver services to a hugely diverse demographic of age, language, ability, and for digitally delivered services, digital access and literacy. The state has a very large portfolio of applications and technologies to support with the funds that are entrusted to us. And the people and the talent that we have available are also a very important, probably the most important resource that we have. I'd like to talk a little bit about the local partnerships programs that DTMB has. First is the Cyber Partners Program. You might have heard a little bit about this last month. It provides security advisory services to local government entities by leveraging our technology resources. It hosts monthly meetings, both in person and virtually, with approximately 100 attendees every month from across the state. Additionally, we've hosted the Michigan Cyber Summit each October for the past 11 years. This year was the first in-person event after the pandemic, and the event was sold out with more than 800 people registered to attend. The Michigan Public Safety Communication System supports over 142,000 mobile and portable radios, which is an 8% increase over last year. There are over 2,200 agencies with interoperable voice and data communications that the MPSCS supports. And the MPS supports over 1,900 multi-jurisdictional events that happened in 2022. NextGen 911. DTMB hosts the statewide NG 911 GIS repository on behalf of the state 911 office for our local units of governments to upload their 911 address data for future call routing. That they will use that, and they'll use that data for routing emergency calls based on the caller location. Local governments share their addressing through this repository for NG 911 and also for state government. The repository includes over 5 million address points and 1 million road segments. The NG 911 partners with over 100 public safety answering points and 81 counties for the exchange of GIS data via this repository. The MyDeal program, Laura's already talked about the MyDeal program, but I'd like to mention that for the 6th straight year, the MyDeal program has increased membership and now includes 1,350 local governments and organizations. Our geographic information systems, there are over 2 terabytes of, we weren't going to talk about bytes, I'm sorry. Okay, sorry. There's a lot of geospatial data, including data being provided by local governments to aggregate into statewide layers. There are over 400 GIS data sets that are in the Michigan GIS Open Data Portal. 30% of these data sets were added just in the last year alone. There are over 100,000 downloads from the Open Data Portal in the past year, and we have a lot, I won't mention the number, we have a lot of imagery data in the imagery solutions and repository for use by state employees. That imagery data includes historical imagery from the 1930s to the 1990s, and it helps state employees analyze change over time. Currently, the GIS is coordinating a statewide project to remap all of the rivers, lakes, and streams that will include 3D elevation elements for improved water and data modeling. Okay.
Thanks, Jack. So just to kind of close it out, we just thought we'd highlight a couple of challenges. So as you've heard through this presentation, technology is continually advancing with opportunities for our customers, but with those opportunities cause increase on demand of our services, and we need to continue to grow with that. Over the past 20 years, IT has transitioned from a nice to have and kind of a backroom sort of conversation to a baseline requirement for all businesses. Our customers aren't just comparing us to other states, like I talked about with our digital state survey, but they're actually comparing us to how they receive services through things like Amazon or Netflix. And so those are the types of technology or the types of experiences that our customers are expecting from us. As a CIO, and most CIOs across all states, we have kind of two of our biggest challenges. The first, and Jack highlighted this already, is the incredibly talented workforce that we have. But the workforce or the work environment and competition for IT professionals across IT industries is very, very competitive right now. So we're working really hard to figure out ways to stay competitive in the marketplace, to invest in our current staff through trainings, through continuing to grow and advance our technology skills, to keeping up with some of the latest trends in technologies to keep interest with our employees and things like that. So really focusing on retention, as well as building our recruitment opportunities, in working with some of our colleges and universities, and even talking with some of our K through 12 educational institutes to really encourage younger individuals as they're getting ready to select what career they're going to go into, really encourage them to look at IT and cybersecurity, as they are great places, really nice opportunities, a lot of opportunities right now in those spaces. And then, of course, I'll just highlight funding, so I'd be remiss if I didn't just highlight that. So obviously, with the continued growth and the demand that we have on our services, we need to be able to stay in line with where we're seeing IT trends heading. And so we need to continue to do the investments and be able to stay with the environment that we need to protect and move forward with. So with that, we would just like to say thank you to the committee for your time today. I know that maybe you saw IT was the first thing on the agenda this morning, and hopefully we met your expectations and went above that. And I'd like to say thank you to Jack for joining me today and helping me co-present. I thought it was a really interesting way to learn about the history of DTMB, IT, as well as IT in general. So thank you. And with that, we're ready for questions.
Thank you. Thank you, Laura and Jack, for that very informative presentation. So I just want to get a little clarity. The DTMB does not only provide services to state agencies, but is responsible for managing local municipalities and constituents' interactions with the state of Michigan.
So DTMB, our primary mission, obviously, is IT support and services for the executive branch offices. Mm-hmm. But there's a lot of interfaces and interactions between local governments and IT services and systems.
Okay.
There's a lot of times where there's requirements for municipalities to submit data or reporting and things in order to get funding or to be considered part of the programs, both federal funding and local funding. We don't necessarily manage the IT for the municipal governments.
Okay.
But we do manage the interfaces for residents to interact with state governments, not with municipal governments.
Got it. So you also work in tandem with other state agencies to secure those interactions?
Yes.
Yeah.
So with that centralized model, DTMB owns and maintains the infrastructure and the support services. That's one of the beautiful things around being centralized is the fact that we can apply those in a standard and consistent way across the network, across the applications, and across the devices, so that we can ensure that the services that we put out for state agencies and those residents are protected, and they're configured in a way that stays with best practices and meets the regulatory requirements that we're required to align to.
Okay. In what ways can we better assist the department troubleshooting problems with our locals to our constituents that you might run into? Is there any way that we can assist?
I think helping promote, I think a lot of times the municipalities, they don't know all the different services that are available. I know we highlighted with the cybersecurity presentation, we highlighted one group, which is the MC3, which is the Michigan Cyber Civilian Corps, which actually, if there's a cybersecurity incident at a local government or a school, they can reach out to Michigan State Police and then work with Michigan State Police to connect in with DTMB to actually get resources to be deployed out to those local entities that are impacted to help restore services and to help kind of clean up after services are restored.
Okay. So how has the past shift in technology and the current shift in technology enhanced or hindered services being rendered to the residents of Michigan?
You want to
Sure.
take one, or do you want me to?
No, I think the changes in technology have moved rapidly towards digital delivery of services. That has both been a boon and a problem because we've been able to deliver services directly to residents through our digital presence. Then again, it presents a problem with digital literacy and availability of digital services, availability of broadband, and the devices that people need to interact digitally with the state, with our websites and those kinds. I'd say that the Department of State has done well in moving a lot of their services towards internet delivery. And there's a number of other agencies that are doing that as well, and that's for those residents that have that capability. It's greatly enhanced their need to get services from the state and speeded up the delivery of those services.
Okay, thank you. Chair recognizes Representative McFall.
Sorry, it was actually asked and answered. You asked it because I wanted to know about local security, like
Right.
what you do with ransomware and such for locals, and you kind of already touched on it. But thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions? Oh, Representative Aragona.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you guys for being here. I think it's becoming clear that you guys are kind of the grease in the machine of state government, so it'd be hard to operate without you guys. I came from a local government background, and I remember we were doing some IT services where we were looking at kind of the difference between on-site servers as opposed to cloud-based servers. Can you help me out with that? Is the state government, are you guys moving towards cloud-based, or are you staying within kind of that old framework of having on-site servers?
Yeah, so we have a cloud strategy that we're working to move towards more cloud-based services. Jack can talk a little bit about the infrastructure and what that means. From an application development standpoint, though, that really is pushing us to change the way that we're doing some of our project management. So instead of doing more like long-term, long phases, we're moving towards an agile project management. We're looking at being able to develop things in smaller pieces so that it's easier to change and migrate into the cloud. So that helps us with our speed to deployment or speed to market. So there's a lot of changes that come with moving or migrating towards the cloud, not just infrastructure, but that is the first step. So I'll let Jack kind of highlight where we're at with that, because we're making quite a few changes in that space.
Sure. We've made quite a few moves to the cloud. We're using Office 365, which is hosted in the cloud today. There's a number of software as a service applications that the state has and that agencies are using that are hosted in cloud environments. As Laura said, speed to value is one thing that gets us looking more at cloud services. Another is the capital expense for building new services. For example, the expense that we would incur if we wanted to build our own AI system would be incredible. It's a lot easier to use AI services from a cloud and pay as on a subscription basis. As I mentioned before, moving to subscription helps us to move to a cloud and avoid that large capital expense and large projects to build that capability.
Gotcha.
Another benefit for the cloud is what we refer to as scalability. So a lot of times our applications or our state services have specific times where they're used more than other times. So what the cloud allows us to do also is be more elastic. So as the demand for the service is needed, we can ramp up very quickly more compute power in the cloud to support those services. And then when the demand is lower, we can pull those back. And then based on the models of costing with consumption-based, it means we don't have to build it out and maintain it at that high level, the highest level of demand for 365 days a year. We can only do it, or we can ramp it up for the spike times. So that's also one of those areas we're really looking to benefit from.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. So you had mentioned you're trying to do it in certain pieces, certain projects here and there. So what's your strategy with, I guess, working with these companies? Because it's my understanding there's only a few companies that actually, provide this cloud base. At least when I was doing it a couple of years ago. So do you work with them to try and figure out exactly what their proposal is, and how does that work?
Yeah, so it depends on what we're procuring.
Okay.
But so if we're procuring a service, we work with we'll put out an RFP, and based on the requirements in there, the bid responses will come back with various cloud service providers, and then we can evaluate the proposals based on cost and best value, right? So we don't just always go based on cost. We also did run, and Jack can talk about this, but we did do an RFP where we did an IaaS, or an infrastructure as a service, and we're working to be able to set up additional cloud tenants with AWS and Google, so that we have that infrastructure available so that we can deploy and leverage the power of technology that they bring as well.
Yes, we recently awarded that contract. So we have three of the major cloud vendors working with us.
Okay.
And we're building state of Michigan tenants in those clouds so that it's easier for agencies to move their applications to a cloud rather than have to go through building a tenant and figuring that all out on their own.
Now you mentioned you're working with all three. Are you working with all three and you choose one, or are you working with each one individually? How does that work?
We are working with all. Well, when we say all, there were 3 awards. We're working with 3 of the cloud vendors: Microsoft, Google, and Amazon.
Okay. And you're gonna choose one, or you're like each one has their own kind of project.
Each one has their own benefits, when we go out to RFP for services, those service vendors would have an affinity for one cloud or another, so that would drive us towards one of the cloud vendors for that particular service.
Got it. Okay. All right. That makes sense. Thank you.
Thank you. Chair recognizes Representative Preston.
Thank you very much. Appreciate all your work. I've watched over the years your department really flourish, and some of the securities on the different platforms that I work on, from EMS to fire, has been impressive to watch, and I commend you for what you've done so far. But my question goes into the next aspect that we're facing, and that's AI and how it affects us going forward. And when I hear about, cloud-based storage and Google being brought up and their aspirations towards an AI-based platform, I'm curious if your department has done basically a SWOT type analysis on AI and the dangers that it presents to you, and what your plans are as this technology exponentially begins to grow, and with that, its inherent threats in regards to the bad actors that are going to weaponize it against your firewalls and your security measures that are going to be put in place and put to test. So if you could just speak to that.
Sure. So we have been watching and using certain aspects of AI. So there's different types of AI, but we really need to leverage and utilize AI in a safe and secure manner, like you said, because a lot with the workforce and with different abilities that we have to be able to do some robotic process engineering and things to be able to automate some of the workload that we have so that we can help balance out the need, the demand of what we have on our services and things. For example, like in our Michigan Security Operations Center, the amount of information and the amount of data that comes into that is so large that you'd never be able to put enough eyes on screens and hands on keyboard to be able to keep up with the information as it's coming in. So we're trying to leverage and utilize AI to help where that workload is needed. Now, some of the generative AIs in things like ChatGPT that we're starting to hear, we're working on, and we're starting to really look at the different impacts and aspects that come with that. Our cybersecurity group actually right now is tasked with working on a white paper to help understand what it all means for us. There is different implications with privacy and protections. There's kind of the bad guys are going to use it to do bad things. We've already seen some examples where social engineering and things are becoming very easy. Things like phishing, where we used to be able to identify a phishing based on, patterns in the way that they're written or typos and those sorts of things. Now the generative AIs are really able to create very sophisticated emails, be able to identify personal information about an individual that maybe they scraped off from social media and things like that, to be able to create a very realistic email that's much harder for the individuals to find. So we're working to try to figure out that. There's also, very important needs for our state employees in ways that generative AIs can help us do our jobs much more effectively and efficiently, but we need to ensure that we understand that we can't put any kind of confidential or restricted information in where the AIs could get access to it. So there's this balance between being able to figure out how to ensure that we can leverage that technology change as it's coming forward, but still protect the state of Michigan and our residents. So yes, it's a very hot topic right now in the field of IT.
Yeah, just to follow up, because I really see it going forward as being, especially in the hands of a bad actor, a technology that I question whether or not you'd be able to identify and stop it. And if it's able to infiltrate the system, how much data can it affect? How many people's records could it affect? Statistics, everyday data that we rely on in working forward. So is it safe to say that there are plans in place to address that threat that's going to be rising on an exponential as far as sophistication as well as increased frequency of attacks going forward?
Yes, so we are working to identify what that all means for the environment so that we can, again, modernize the way that we're applying our security and our controls to be able to help, stop those bad guys from getting in.
Zero trust, talk a little bit about.
Yeah. So in the last month meeting, we talked about zero trust, which is the modernized way that we're going to move towards doing security. Legacy security basically is what we refer to as kind of a moat and castle. where, once you get past the moat and you get inside the castle, you have somewhat free reign. Now, Zero Trust is a continuous verify of identity, so no matter if you've gotten through the front door, we're still going to check you as you're moving along the network or into different data systems and things like that. You focus on both the person, the device, and the data, so that it checks to say, should this person be connected to that data? Should this device be connected to the data? It looks at various things like we refer to as impossible login. So something like if I logged in to my state of Michigan computer from an IP address in Lansing, and then within an hour I try to log in, my same ID tries to log in through, an address in Ireland, then that would be an impossible login. There'd be no way I could travel from Michigan to Ireland in an hour, right? And so it looks for various things like that. So like I said, it's really modernizing and ensuring that the way that things are traveling through the network are verified continuously versus that kind of one-point check that we have before.
Okay, thank you. Are there any more questions? No? Okay, well, thank you so very much, Laura and Jack, and also Bree, for coming before us today. Very informative presentation. Okay. Oh, yes. So we need a motion to excuse Representative Whitsitt from today's committee meeting. Okay. Representative Andrews makes a move to excuse Representative Whitsitt from today's meeting. Okay, with there being no further business before the committee is adjourned.